Hey up, guys. How do we do? YouTube. Got this. I've actually nicked this thing that I'm putting this phone in off one of my daughters, so there we go. Yeah, you can't see this, but I'm actually I put my phone in this little holder. It's a light ring, and I think it's for like when they're doing makeup tutorials or something. Or they're like, I don't know what they do with it, but anyway, I've pinched it and I've got it in here, and it works quite well. But every now and then it disappears, and I have to go rooting for it because the girls take it back off me. They're like, Dad, stop pinching our stuff. Should buy my own one, shouldn't I? How are we all doing anyway? We okay? Jorex Jim, hey all, evening mate, how we doing? Adam McLaughlin, sound gentlemen, sound. Oh, what a mad day, to be honest with you fellas. So today, I pretty much work 7 days a week in, week out. Don't know why. I'm just a workaholic. I just enjoy it. I like being productive. So even if I'm off and I'm on holiday, I can't sort of relax. I have to continually keep doing something. I don't know what's wrong with me. But anyway, it's just the way I'm wired. But today, I've been running around town at little loose ends. And I booked a scaffolder in for a job. Like, I booked him in 2 weeks ago. And sort of had him booked in to do the scaffolding last weekend because I knew he would probably be busy. He usually is, my scaffolder man that does me scaffolding for me. He usually, whatever day I'm booking for, he's usually a couple of days late anyway. So I sort of book him in for the week before. But I think he's sussed me out. So now he's like, nothing's happened all week because he usually phones me. He's like, come on, Kirk, can you come and pay me some money? I've done that job for you. Anyway, we're meant to be starting another little K-Ren job tomorrow. I've got the whole house that's having external wall insulation, but just as a little sort of like a little bonus job that I've just squeezed in. We've got another one of those little bay K-Rens through, between the upstairs and the downstairs window. So I just asked him to go and chuck the scaffolding up on that. No correspondence from him whatsoever. So I thought better check in with him. Anyway, I just phoned him a minute ago. I was like, "Is that job up, mate? Have you got that job ready for tomorrow? Because we're going to go and chop it off first thing in the morning before we go somewhere else." And he's hurt his thumb. Apparently, his thumb's not in a good way. So he's got his thumb caught in some scaffolding. He spent what did he say? He spent the weekend in A&E. So I said, "All right, mate. Okay, how bad's your thumb? Like, because I'm concerned for him. I'm like, he's my mate. How is your thumb, mate? I mean, what condition is it in? Have you chopped it off? Is it facing the wrong direction? Is it squashed? I mean, what can you move it? What's the situation like?" He went, no, it's all right. It's going to get better. Like I said, all right, mate. Well, when do you think it'll be better? Like, not pushing you for this job if you've hurt your thumb, but I'm just sort of trying to get an idea what the situation is. He said, "Oh no, it'll be better by Tuesday." So. You can't win, can you? Some people. It'll be better on Tuesday, so that's when the job's happening. He's sussed me out now. He knows I book him a week in advance. So now he just likes. I don't know what's wrong with him. He just likes to push everything to the very, very last minute. Like me with this live tonight. I've been waiting to get on here. I've been waiting to jump on with you guys. My missus has been out. They've been up and down with the daughters, doing whatever they're doing. I've been left with the little toothless terrorist, the little Kirk. He's been with me, and I've discovered lately he's just come to life. There's no chance I can jump on here and do a live with him because he just will not stay still. He's like a little octopus. I'm holding on to him. He's grabbing this. His little hands are everywhere. And to be fair to him, for such a little fella, he's quite strong. He just rips things out, and he's a nightmare. So there was no chance I was going with him. So I had to wait for them to come back so I can jump on. But anyway, gentlemen, ladies as well, how are you all? Have you had a nice weekend? Are you all off tomorrow? Are you enjoying the bank holiday weekend? Or are you greedy like me and going to work? Let's just see. How we doing? How we doing? Ronnie Barker, hello, Captain. Been on me holes. Where have you been, Ronnie? Anywhere special, mate? Anywhere nice? Jameer Ali, talk about SBR. No, we've killed SBR, mate. I'm not even going to mention. Flipping, there's people that are sick of hearing the flipping words, the letters SBR. Told the Spanish about extra time. Spot on, Ronnie. Spriggs 08, ex-plasterer, no longer due to shoulders and trigger finger, finished me off. Love your video, pal. Down to earth and genuinely spot on. That's very kind of you, sir. Thank you very much. How do you feel there, mate? Got a torn shirt. Oh, yeah. We're all picking up little injuries from plastering. It's what's the name of it? It's a physically demanding job, plastering. Like, to be fair, I used to suffer with my wrist. Changed the size of my trowel, and I'm all right now. The only thing I'm struggling with is what was that woman said to me? You've been grafting all day, and I sat down for about half an hour, had a cup of coffee, and I thought I'll get up now and clean everything up. And as I started cleaning up, I was a bit slow, and you're sort of like, just trying to get back into it. And she said to me, "Have your back legs gone, love?" Like I was an Alsatian. When you see an old Alsatian who can't stand up properly. She said, "Oh, have your back legs gone, have they, love?" So that's the only thing I'm suffering with. Me flipping back legs go. Right. Gentlemen as well. Do you know, I've been trying to knock the beer in the head a little bit, trying to wean myself off it, because you gotta keep your eye on yourself. Anyway, I haven't had a drink really for ages. I haven't had a pint of nothing. And then last night I finished work, and it was a heck of a day tomorrow. This is the thing as well. I got let down on another job yesterday. There was a lad meant to come in and help me, and he didn't turn up because he had a migraine. Flipping migraines, man. His migraines are starting to give me headaches. But this is the thing. When there's other humans involved in your business, the more moving parts, the more people involved, the more potential for things to just go wrong. So what was meant to be a sort of like a quick job yesterday turned into an absolute grueler for me. I was there for about 10 hours. I mean, it's okay. I was handsomely rewarded for it, so I didn't mind, but it was a grueler of a day. And then my missus had nipped along to her friend's birthday party, a 40th, with the kids. So obviously, she was like, just come along, just turn up. It was in a pub. It wasn't like a big fancy do. So I just turned up in my scruffs like this and in my work clothes, just sort of nipped in. I had 2 pints. Oh, because I don't know because you haven't drank nothing all week. I had 2 pints of Moretti. I swear, my head felt like it had been in a vice this morning. It felt like maybe she's been punching me when I was asleep or something. But didn't feel too healthy this morning. Right now, someone asked me a question before, and I thought I'll just answer that quickly as well straight away. Ronnie Barker's been to Benidorm. On the back he run. What you like? I'll tell you about Benidorm. We stayed in the Don George apartments, I think they're called. Probably don't say it that posh. The Don George apartments, or the Don George. Anyway, they're up the hill. They're right at the very, very end of the Benidorm strip, and they're up the hill, not towards the old town, the opposite direction. And we were up there, and because I've got a load of kids in tow, you can't fit that many in the back of the taxis. So everywhere we went, I had to go in like convoy. So, I'd go in one taxi with a couple of the kids, and then the missus would go in the other taxi with the other child. So we'd have to anyway, that become an absolute nightmare trying to get 2 taxis to turn up and do things at the same time. So what we ended up doing was just walking back and up and down this hill every day. It was a flipping killer. So if you ever go to Benidorm, try not to stay. I think they call it Cardiac Hill, and the Don George apartments are the last high-rise sort of hotel up that hill. But just to give you a little insight into the craziness of me, if you go a little bit further, Ronnie, and you look up that hill, there's a big white cross in the mountainside. Big white cross, and I thought to myself, whilst I'm here, I'm going to walk up to that at some point. I'm going to take a little stroll out one morning, you know, and go on a little walk. Stupidly, I got up, didn't take my phone with me, didn't take anything with me, and set off for a little walk up to that cross. Like, I just wanted to go and have a look at it. It looked about a mile away. I didn't take any water, no phone. And I somehow went on the wrong trail. And if you look behind that cross, there's like not a mountain, but it looks like a mountain, like a massive thing. I was up there. I was looking down the cross thinking, how do I even get to that? I was literally scorching in the sun. I had no water. It was almost like a challenge to see if I'd survive to the end of the walk. You know, and I'm thinking, if I hurt myself on a rock, or I don't know if it was in like the bush, there's like rocks and everything. I was thinking, if I get bit by a snake or something, I'm a goner. So, yeah, Benidorm, flipping crazy place that was. Samuel Watkins, what trowel are you using now, Kurt? Carbon steel? Yes, mate, carbon steel. No, I prefer carbon steel, but I haven't really got, like, you know, I would use stainless steel. It's just, I like to have a little change. So the next trowel I'll probably get, when this carbon steel really starts losing its shape, because they always end up bending the wrong way on me, you know. And I do sort of send them back, but once you start changing the shape of your trowel, it's back into it seems to just knackered it. You know, you can get another couple of months out of it, but they always seem to just keep going the wrong way, then it's bend the wrong way. So the next trowel I get will probably be stainless, just because I like to. After so many years of plastering, you get bored, don't you? Just the little things you can do to try and keep it interesting for yourself, changing things. Adam McLaughlin, anyone use them work tool boots? I've seen them. Look like you've got your mop bucket on your feet. Luke W. Hi, mate. How long do you get to lay on with half time? Half time, mate, literally, it just speeds the whole process up. So it's not like a flash set on you. You know, if you put half time in your mix, it'll literally just, the whole process just goes a little bit quicker. So, you know, if you put the right amount in, like, you know, one sachet for half a bag, then you've got half the time that you usually have. But I chuck it in, you know, I'll put one sachet for the full bag, so that would be like 3/4 of the time, I suppose. But you don't really notice it because it's just like the gears going off a little bit quicker on you. So, Spriggs, I've always stuck on my Tarzek trowels, rivets flashing, but they finish up lovely. Do you know when your rivets go on your trowel? My father-in-law, who's a steel erector, did say to me, when the rivets pop, why don't you just put new rivets in? Like, drill them out and re-rivet it. I've never done that. I mean, maybe that's an option for you, mate. I've never actually thought about just putting new rivets in it and grinding them off flat again. I don't know how to do it. So, Ronnie Barker, there was a Scouser who peaked too soon, wouldn't let him on the plane. Who spoke too soon, I think you mean. I don't know, Spriggs. Spriggs 08, 2 pints, I'd be buggered, lol. Don't drink no more. Yeah, I tell you, I mean, normally, I'll quite happily, you know, sit there and have 3 or 4 pints and basically feel up. I had 2 pints of it, I felt absolutely fine. It was just this morning I woke up, I was like, oh, sharp hangover off it. I don't know if it was because where I bought them from, maybe the ale that wasn't that good, you know. Sometimes you get a bad pint, don't you? So, right, someone asked me before as well, when I'm sort of put on, I'm going to be a bit late on the live, I put it in the community tab. Someone, I can't think who it was now, someone asked me about using insulated plasterboards and would it help with stopping mold and condensation on internal walls. Yes, you get mold growth and stuff on usually on solid walls because the cold spots. So you wouldn't usually get mold growing back in the day when they originally done it because it'd be on lime plaster. So when when they did all this lime plastering, you don't get mold growing on lime plaster, or you don't usually anyway. But then obviously we've started re-skimming things and using sand and cement and thistle finish and stuff, and that does get damp and hold moisture, and hence mold growth with condensation and cold spots and what have you. So yeah, insulated plasterboards would help. Just bear in mind how you're going to fix them though, because if it's a solid 9-inch wall, you don't want to be doing anything to draw moisture through the wall, you know. So maybe, not saying it's a textbook way, maybe consider putting a good coat of sand and cement on first with waterproofer, or, you know, make an SBR slurry for the walls first to sort of seal them before you use adhesive to stick your boards to it, because the last thing you want is, like, you know, damp adhesive. I know the boards are insulated, and I know a lot of people say, oh, you can just dab straight on to the old 9-inch walls, because if any moisture comes through, it's not going to come through the insulation. But just the idea of, you know, moisture sort of being behind the plasterboards, I mean, if you don't want mold on the front of the boards, the last thing you want is the back of them to be covered in it, is it? So would be my 2p's worth. I mean, that'll be my thinking on it, mate, anyway. Let's have a look. Any questions in here? Oh, I'll tell you what as well. Today I've had a right run around as well, gents. Went to got a little job to go and do tomorrow. It's a little archway as well. There's like a hallway, walls and ceiling. There's a big hand-formed cove, but that's not getting touched, and it goes through an archway. So I had to go. I needed some arch beads. So because I was looking for them today, the only place that was open was B&Q. So I thought, right, went to B&Q, bought the finish. It does pay me. B&Q used to be cheap for finish. Now I feel like it's the most expensive place to buy finish from in the world. But anyway, I bought the finish, and I was looking for the arch beads, the plastic arch beads. So it's a little bugbear for you as well. That trade point in B&Q, you go to the trade point, right? Because you think that's where the tradesmen go. Sort of like, you know, bulk exit, you can get all your gear out fast. It should be nice and quick. You know, you're not there doing your weekly shop. You just in, out, get your gear and gone. Who are they giving these trades cards to? I mean, I know we live in the modern world where sort of, you know, it's right. There's a 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 60, 70-year-old woman, right, buying an internal door, and she's at the trade point getting served, and she's got a trade card. Now, maybe she is a tradeswoman. I don't know, but she wasn't dressed like one. I'm thinking there was loads of people like this, you know, mums with kids, and they're buying paint all through the trade point. I'm like, what even is the point of this trade point? I thought it was literally like a fast lane for tradesmen. It's just like anyone could go in there, so I don't know what the point of it is. But anyway, I was getting these arch beads, looking for these plastic arch beads. You know, the ones that got like they've got loads of little cuts on one side and they're dead flexible. I found the skim stop beads that you can sometimes use, but if you try and bend them too much, they just kink. So you can mess with them for ages, slowly sort of bending them bit by bit. You know, I sometimes run them, like press on them with a hammer and run along it, and it curls it a bit, and then do it again. You know, you can work on them, but the plastic ones are much easier. So I walked literally up and down every aisle in B&Q, thinking, you know, it's a DIY store. They might have put them somewhere else. I don't know. Went up and down, literally went up the tiling aisle, all over the place looking for them. Couldn't find them. Went back to the counter, queued up behind old women buying doors, right at the trade point bit. Then said to the lady, have you got plastic arch beads? Yes, I'm sure we've got them somewhere. Follow me. She then continued to take me, which I didn't mind. I can do the exercise, up and down every single aisle that I'd already been up and down, to tell me at the end of it, no, I don't think we've got any. What was the point in that? I don't think. She looked in the thing. No, we don't sell them. Oh, right, okay then. Thanks for the extra 40 minutes added to me visit. Oh, flipping nuts, isn't it? So anyway, I don't mean to be moaning. I've been let down by my scaffolder. I've been let down by another plasterer. I can't get my arch beads. I've had the baby. I'm just getting it all off my chest. What a day. You've got to laugh though, haven't you, fellas? If you don't laugh, you cry. Let's have a look. I'm just sorry, guys. Whilst I'm going and just looking at my screen, my little finger is actually you can't. The camera's up here, the comments are down here. So whilst I'm just looking like, I'm just reading some of the comments in here. Now it'd be easier if I could just find the questions, but you lads seem to be having a right old little chinwag in the comment section, so I have to filter through them. I'm not the fastest reader. Give us a second. Have you tried the Nella Black Edition finishing trowel? I had a Nella trowel. I've had Nella flexi trowels. I've had 2 of those, and I did because I went all a while back. Like I went all Nella out. You know, I got the Nella handboard because it was quite a decent sized handboard, and I got a Nella plastering trowel as well as 2 flexi trowels. I don't know if it was the Black Edition though. It had the Beco cork grip handle, which was quite nice. But I don't know if it was just me, but I flipping basically burnt through that thing in about 3 or 4 months. It was no more. It was just a little black handle then. I've still got that actually. That's actually hung up on my trowel rack. A sore subject, so don't even get me started on me van. Every time I speak to the mechanic, it's just more bad news. So, I think the next thing they've rebuilt the top of the engine. They've changed because there was a snapped rocket in my van. They've changed the camshaft sensor. They've changed a pulley or something. They've done so. I don't know what they've done. They've done all sorts of stuff. I think the next thing that we're going to try, if this doesn't fix it, the next thing we're going to try is fire. We'll just burn it. That might be a better option because I mean he hasn't given me the bill yet, but I'm sure it'd be very fair. You know, it's fine. It is what it is, but it just seems it's more like it's like, you know, I'm looking forward to having it back. My van's great. I can walk straight in the back of it. I can fit boards straight in the back of it. It's like a walk in the back of my van, and it's literally set out like a shop. I've got, you know, scrim. I've got 100 rolls of scrim. I've got every type of drywall screw all in racks. You know, I've got all my levels, my rules, everything, water levels, lasers. You know, it's set up properly. It's just exactly how you need it, so that any job, I don't have to even think about materials. I know it doesn't matter what I've got going on. I can sort it because I've got the right stuff on the van. And I miss it because I'm in the back of a pickup truck, and I'm like trying to do jobs with like flipping things that I find in the back of my truck. It's just a nightmare. I mean, I enjoy driving it around, but I think you've got to really appreciate the old Toyota Hiluxes, because if you don't know about them, if you're not really into that, then they just look like a flipping a little scruff turning up on the job. Just a clapped out old truck. I'm probably looking out the curtains thinking, who is this fella? He's just turned up in a 30-year-old truck. Oh, let's have a look. More comments. Danny Arbuckle has said the work tall boots are dangerous. Tell you what, you think they're dangerous. Have you ever tried doing the splits with a pair of stilts on? I don't wear stilts anymore, but I used to wear them on the sites years ago. Used to wear them on the sites and chuck all the bedroom ceilings on in one shot. And then they used to, I don't know if it's still the same now, but the flooring used to come with like a laminated like plastic stuff on the top of it to protect the flooring, so that once the house is built and it's all finished, the site labourers go in and pull all the flooring up and the floor's spotless. That's great, but when the feet of your stilts are made of like this hard rubber, if someone drops a bit of plaster on the floor, or say you're working with a lunatic who just loves to soak everything, which I've had the pleasure of working with people like that. They just get the water brush and it's just like rah, everywhere. You try walking on that floor and you stilts, you do one little wrong step and yeah. I'm not the most flexible of people either. So, Ronnie Barker got 2 plastic curtain. Well, I did, mate. So I legitimately fell through the attic ceiling into the bathroom once, mate. Didn't even touch the joist neither. Have you ever had any near misses? Yeah, done the same thing, mate. I've come through a ceiling myself. What was the worst one I've ever had? I've I fell through a ceiling because the electrician, God bless him, lovely little fella, he'd been doing jobs and taking the floorboards up and cutting them, just cutting them in random places. Didn't cut it on a joist, just cut it wherever, like wherever the drill head dropped. That's where he just started making holes, cut through the floorboard, did what he wanted to do, and then just put it back in the place again. Maybe he was planning on going back later and screwing a bit of wood to the bottom of it and fixing it. I don't know, because he didn't do that. So when I walked across it, it was like a trap end. It just flipped up, and one foot went straight down, which wasn't that exciting. And also, what made it even better was the way my foot went through the ceiling. I had a pair of shorts on, and it was a lath and plaster ceiling. So when my foot went through the lath and plaster, it snapped the laths, and they sort of did that. And my leg went down between them. I'm in the house on my own, by the way. My leg went down between the laths like that, but they didn't completely break. But how can I explain this? It was only one floorboard wide. I mean, I literally stood on exactly the right bit for my foot to go straight down, straight through the ceiling. I couldn't fit my hands down there because my leg was riding up to up to my nuts nearly. The fat part of my thigh was sort of wedged between the floorboards, so there's no space for anything. And because the laths hadn't snapped properly, they just sort of broke and let me leg go through. They were like trapping me, so as I'm trying to pull my leg back up, they're doing that, I'm like digging in. Do you know what I mean? It was like a human mouse trap. Flipping. So that was not too bad because it hurt, but it wasn't really that dangerous. It was just inconvenient because I had to just basically just rip my leg back out again, which was a bit uncomfortable, and naturally caused me to call the electrician a few names. I actually phoned him up to let him know what I thought of him after that, and then everything settled down and we made friends again. But other near misses, working on scaffolding planks across stairwells, always double your planks up. If you're going to do it, I mean, they have, what do they call it now? There's a new system that you have on building sites now. I think it's called the Oxford system or something. It's like a scaffold that's designed to go in a stairway, a Cambridge system or something like that. Anyway, I've never used one, and apparently they take ages to set up anyway. So, but we used to just throw a ladder up against the wall and put a plank straight across, and go and skin the ceiling or whatever you're doing just on the ladder and plank. I've learned the hard way now. Enough planks to just double them up. Just put 2 planks. It takes an extra second to go and pull another plank off the scaffolding and use 2 rather than 1, because when it snaps, that noise you make when you hit the ground, you just, and then you go, oh. I mean, just try and throw your trowel away from you when you go. But trust me, double the planks up. In fact, I'll tell you, just whilst, sorry if there's any more questions, just let me tell you one thing as well. Talking about being on a stairwell on a ladder and plank. Like years ago, I think I might have mentioned this already, but we used to mix bonding on the building sites for Redrow. Used to get a 45-gallon drum, chop that in half, and we'd mix 4 or 5 bags of bonding compound, adhesive. You'd mix about 4 or 5 bags at a time for sticking the upstairs of the house and what have you. Now, what we used to do was, whatever was left at the end of the shift, rather than scraping it out and washing it out, which just takes ages, you're only mixing adhesive in there anyway, we just let it set on the tub. And then the next day, you go in, belt it with a hammer all over, it'd all just break off, tip it out in the skip, and then you can use it again. Well, one of the things that we used to do was just sort of roll it down the stairs. Boom, 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 boom. By the time we got to the bottom, all the sides, you'd only have to tap it once or twice with a hammer. It's got to go out anyway, so we just roll it down the stairs. I mean, not ideal. Thinking back, probably a stupid thing to do because you could damage the staircase. But anyway, we were all young and stupid, so that's how we used to do it. Now, my apprentice at the time, for some unknown reason, decided instead of rolling it down the stairs, he was just going to pick it up and throw it off the landing. And the staircase went down to a little landing and then down again. Do you know what I mean? It was like one of those U-shaped staircases in a 3-story house. So he just threw it from one landing and it landed on the next. And what it actually did when it landed, instead of like smashing all the bonding out, it just went smash straight through the chipboard floor. Didn't go all the way through, but made a decent sized hole just straight through the floor on the landing. Oh, flipping, there we go. It doesn't, no one really cares on site. I mean, you probably get a bit of grief for it, but they just replace it. It's not the end of the world. But what we did in the meantime was, all the fellas with the clipboards and all that, you know, they all turn up on site, don't they? They've all got the clipboards, the pens, they've got all the whole little entourage of, you know, office people with them. I've got a gauge on, I've got my ladder. I've got my ladder up with my plank across. I've got the ceiling on, the landing ceiling. I've spotted them coming down the hill on the site, all of them, a little army of about 8 of them with clipboards and that. So I just said, quick, put something over that hole so they don't see that hole now. So one of the lads went and got a piece of sound block board, just an offcut, and just put it over the hole so that we wouldn't get, you know, so the contracts manager and all that wouldn't see it and start shouting at us and what have you. We just thought we'd get the joiner to fix it later. So he's put a piece of sound block board over the hole. Now I'm working away on the ladder, on the plank. And then they come into our house. Of course, they're going to come into my house. They don't go in anyone else's house. They just come straight into our house, up the stairs. And there's a health and safety lady with them. She's the health and safety executive on the site. She's come up and she's spotted me on the plank. And she's starting to tell me how I'm not meant to be on this plank. But what she's done is, I mean, lucky she was only a little tiny little thing. She must have been about 6 stone or something. There was not much of her, you know. But she's there with a big rigger boots on, you know, and a hat and everything. I don't even think you're allowed to wear rigger boots on site anymore. But she's got these big rigger boots on, a hat and a big yellow high-vis coat on. And she stood on top of the soundboard board, on top of the hole, telling me, that's not safe, you can't be on there. And I'm thinking, any minute now, love, if you don't move, you're just going to go straight through that flipping floor, because if that plasterboard gives way, so I'm on the ladder. Okay, sorry, I'm getting off it. I'm trying to say anything I can just to get them out as fast as possible, because she's just stood on it. I'm thinking, I'll go to jail. I can feel it already. But fortunately, she was okay. They just went off like in a flipping heck. That was a close shave. Not so much for me, but I was thinking if she goes through that hole, oh, I'm going to lose my flipping job. Anyway, let's have a look if there's any more questions in here. Tell you the worst injury. Well, not the worst injury. Slicing my hand with a standing knife, cutting the bottom of, you know, when you do a bathroom and you put you plasterboard the windowsill because they haven't got like a timber sill. And if you don't cut your boards, if you're going to cut your boards over, cut them right over so you've got a good bit to break off, or cut them the exact right size. But don't cut them with a little 1/4 of an inch that needs cutting off, because it's a pain. You can't break it off that easy. So I'm there trying to cut underneath this sill to cut this stupid little amount off it. Brand new blade, hand on top of the sill so it doesn't push up. Went straight down my flipping hand, standing knife, brand new blade, just sliced with my own hand, and I just went like that. Look, didn't hurt. It sort of tickles. It feels like itchy, if that makes sense. You can't really feel it. But when I looked at it, it went like that, and the flipping hand just went and opened up. I was like, oh, that was it. I had to lie on the floor, just lie there, nearly passing out. Oh. Evening, pal. Ronnie Barker, the floorboard came up and popped me knee, steel pins, wrote me off. Had to pack the trowel away. That's why Captain doesn't spill much on the finish. Well, yeah. Wearing stilts trains you not to drop loads of finish on the floor because it's like an ice rink. Let's have a look. Let's see. Jorex Jim, I'm too fat to wear stilts. I'm the same, Jim. I think there's better stilts these days, but I remember the ones I had. I think they were called Jora stilts. but they just had a ruthless strap around the top, just underneath where your knees, you know, and there was no sort of padding. It was just literally like a ratchet strap onto your leg, and because that's the point of leverage when the stilts are extended. It just cuts off the circulation to your feet, and the heavier you are, the more it digs in. So yeah, I'm the same, mate. I weigh too much to be wearing stilts these days. Simon D. Sparkies and knobs. Steady on, Simon. Lay off the Indian takeaways. Mate, what else is there in life for me? You know, all I do is work. You've got to have some pleasures, haven't you? I like nice food, nice beer, and a comfy bed. Let's have a look. Sky Pro Gamer. Keep seeing a few ripples on bigger ceilings once they're painted. Tried changing my techniques, but keep getting them. Started to bug me. Any tips? Many thanks. Ripples on your ceilings could be caused by a few things, mate. Are you putting it on too thick? Are you putting too much water on too early in the mix? You know, if you're troweling and the stuff's wet, you don't need to splash loads of water on. So tiger striping usually comes from a new trowel, stuff too thick, or too much water early on. So check those things, mate. If you do discover that you're getting like ripples on the ceiling and stuff, and you want to sort of stop it, give the ripples, dip your flat brush in a bit of water and brush it, you know, so it puts literally lines in the plaster, like brush lines. You know, if it's soaking wet, if the plaster's still sticking to your fingers, like when you touch it, then it's too wet to do this. But if it's sort of going off, say you've given it a flattening and you're giving it the first wet trowel, say, and you've got ripples, dip your flat brush in some water, brush it one direction and then brush it another direction, you know, so you sort of like do like a cross hash of brush strokes over where the ripples are. Yeah, trowel around the whole ceiling and then get to it and then flick a little tiny bit of water and trowel it again. That should get rid of your ripples if you spot them when you're skimming. But if you're not sort of catching them and not noticing them till after you're painted, it's going to be very hard to do that. So maybe just try using a little bit less water and just see how you go with that, mate. Simon D, are you using a Flexi Trowel Pro Gamer? That could be another issue. You see, everyone gets on me back about the Flexi Trowel thing, but if you're using Flexi Trowels, because they're flexible, if there's any lumps and bumps or ripples in your ceiling, because the trowel's flexible, it just goes into those hollow spots and polishes it. So sort of when you glance at it, it all looks polished, but it's actually not flat. You see, that's why it feels like it's so lovely to trowel up with, because you think it's getting mint, but it's not. Nothing looks mint. It's still all over the place, but it's polishing, so you can't really tell. Whereas with a normal steel trowel, you know, it won't go into those little deviations in the plaster, little ripples. So then you can see them, because you'll see, you know, the texture is different. That bit's smooth and that bit's not. You know, it shows up different when the light hits it, so you can spot your ripples easier. So that's sort of like what the problem with these Flexi trowels is. And people always say, no, you're using them too soon. Yeah, well, okay, use them at the very, very end. If you're going to use a flexible polishing trowel, use it at the very, very end, the last trowel. And then my thought on it was like, you know, because I like them, don't be wrong, they feel lovely to use. But if I'm only using it for the very last trowel and I could just use my normal steel trowel, then what? Why use two trowels if you only need one? You know, when people say they're better on your wrist, see, this is the thing with me. I used to suffer with my wrist, and people say, oh, the Flexi trowels are better on your wrist. You don't have to push as hard. Well, when you're pushing hard, you're actually leveling the plaster out. If the plaster isn't level and it's lumpy and bumpy, and you're having to push hard to get it flat, when you're using a Flexi trowel and you don't have to push as hard, it's not actually getting it flat. It might look it because it's polished, but that's, do you know what I mean? It's like a false economy. It's like it's not helping you at all. To you, I mean, people always give me stick about this. You use them. If you like them, you keep using them. I mean, I've done a couple of videos lately. I've been reskimming people's jobs. I've been going back to jobs that have been skimmed, and I'm reskimming them. If every plasterer near me used flexi trowels, I'd be super busy. I'm already busy. Imagine how much extra work I'd have going over all your work. I'd be sound. So, I mean, if you really love them, crack on with them, but they're not for me. I don't like them no more. I liked them, and now I don't. I've had a lad in with me, and he loved using it, and he's sort of like come round to my way of thinking now. You know, he's seen some of the jobs that we've been to where they've been used in the past, and he's onto it now. So, but you know, some things you have to learn the hard way, don't you? And I did. I went back and seen a couple of my jobs years ago when I'd used them, and the customers didn't say nothing. You know, they seemed quite happy, but I wasn't happy. I was looking at it thinking, that does not look right. That's not how it's supposed to be. So, let's see. So everyone is talking to Sky Gaming about the trowel rippling here. This is ace. I feel like I'm just in with a little conversation with you guys in the comments. You all chatting amongst yourselves, and I'm just joining in. Oh, that was, sorry, someone else asked me as well. In case you've been lost in the comments, someone said that they've got a media wall to skim. Any tips for skimming it? First one that they've ever done. Would they do all the inset boxes first and then do the face of the media wall last? Here's what I would suggest, mate. If it's your first sort of go at doing a media wall, I don't know how much skimming you've done, but make it easy on yourself. Try and do as many hard angles as you can. So if you're going to split it up, sort of do like, you know, in all the little recesses, do the tops and bottoms of every one, and the cheeks of the actual the cheeks of the actual media wall, and then the little boxes do the heads and sills, if you were, like of each little box. Do all that, and then the next mix you could do all the backs and the face of the media wall, and then, you know, whether you'd be happy having a third mix. You could have a few wet angles, but the more wet angles, they become more of a pain in the backside, especially when you've got loads of them. You know, I've done some of the media walls, and you've got to sort of get a grip of some people that are building them, because they go a bit mental sometimes. I mean, I think sort of like with them, less is more. Maybe have, you know, a bit where the telly goes and one or two recesses. But I've done ones where people have made, you know, a space for the telly, a space for the soundbar, a space for the skybox, a space for this, you know, and you turn up and there's like flipping 200 little cubby holes, and you're like, you know, I had a little square hole for the TV remote to slide in. I was like looking in it like, how am I going to plaster inside there? I mean, we did it, but it was about that deep. I'm like, I need to get like a little flipping spatula on a stick to be able to get down there. Flipping, you've got to sort of tell some people, look, just calm down with all these little compartments you want to put in there. Make it practical. Zach Hurst, skimmed the wall without any help the other day. Looked like I was feeding pigeons. Fair play, mate. Oh, look, did it look like someone had put it on with a chicken's foot? Michael Dix did some boxing in around a soil stack today and skimmed it. Noticed for first time the plaster was sagging. Managed to get it looking right, but seems ages to go off. Was sagging near the angle bead edges, pal. Yeah, sometimes you get that. If your finish goes on a little bit thick around your beads. So sometimes it sags a little bit, especially if the mix is a bit wet. I'll tell you what really sags, if you ever use out-of-date plaster, that seems to just drip off the wall, so try and avoid that. But yeah, if your plaster's sagging a little bit, I mean, it just happens. I mean, the job I was doing yesterday, talking about plaster sagging, Kieran mixed me a bucket of stuff. I think he does it to test me. I think he likes to see, what the limits are of what I can actually put up with. Because this big long living room that we were skimming, they glossed. Have you ever skimmed when they've glossed the window reveals and the window head? I don't know why they used to do that. Like all the walls were normal, but the inside the window reveals was glossed. So skimming over gloss isn't exactly the most exciting thing to do either. But Kieran, it was like he'd done me the thickest bucket of finish where he tried to tip it on the spot board and it wouldn't even come out the bucket. needed a spoon to start scooping it out. And then the next mix, because I sort of said to him, "Okay, come on, mate. You know how I have it. Knock it up a bit wetter the next one." So then the next one, you could drink it with a straw. It was just a bucket of piss. And he tips it out on the spot board, and he knows it's not right. He's like, "Mate, what are you doing?" So then I'm having to put the first coat on these reveals of this flipping plant. And talking about sagging, mate, this is just basically dripping down the reveals. But once it starts to pick up, you can sort of put it back to shape again, and you're all right. Sean Oxborough or Sean Oxborough, plastering is all timing and skill, experience, no matter. Yeah, true. Experience, mate. It's plastering is one of those things that you've got to practice it. You've got to. It is experience. You're spot on, mate. It is all about experience. I mean, not knocking any other trades, but you can literally learn most. Like, for instance, electrics. I went to college to be an electrician. You can literally sit down with textbooks and diagrams and learn to become an electrician. You can literally just study it and learn it. The skill involved with your hands. I mean, if you know how to use a screwdriver and a pair of stripping wire, that's about as skillful as it gets in terms of what you're gonna do with your hands. You're gonna be able to think. So I'm not knocking sparks, but plastering literally is you've got to learn to with your hands, and it just takes time. It just takes. People say, like, they're trying to sort of study plastering, and what about this, and how do you do it? The best thing to do is get a wall and start plastering it. Just go in your spare bedroom, take the carpet out because that'll get ruined, put some sheets down, go take your skirting board off and practice on a wall. That's the only way you're gonna get. You can read and you can watch as many videos as you want, but you have to literally practice the art of plastering. You can't learn it and then go and do it. You've got to really practice it. That's one of the things I used to say on the sites. Joiners turn up with the bits of wood and they can knock them together. Plumbers have got the bits of pipe and they do all this. Electricians have the wires. Us plasterers turn up with bags of dust and create miracles with it. You gotta watch how you say that though. You say you turn up with bags of dust, and some people take you the wrong way, don't they? So there are some mad plasterers. Sandy, as my dad would say, you can't polish a turd. Well, tell you what, some of the jobs that I plastered over, mate, I would say I wouldn't disagree with you, Dad, but I'd say I'm quite good at polishing turds, mate. Some of the stuff I've had to get over in my past. Pundot, what's the best way to go about getting into the trade and starting your own business? Okay, mate, if you wanted to get into the plastering trade, I would highly recommend go and get your CSCS card, get yourself a pair of steel toe cap boots, and go and get on a building site. Go to any gang of plasterers and just offer. If you genuinely want to get into plastering and you don't know anyone that's going to take you on, get your card so you can get you can get out onto a building site sort of thing. Go and find some lads that are doing site work and offer to work for free. Just I know it sounds counterproductive because you want to earn money, but just offer. Just say, listen, let me jump in with you. I'll work for nothing, and if you think I'm any good, take me on. Because on site you always need an extra pair of hands. There's always boards to be loaded. There's always mixing to be done. Literally, the lads on site don't stop. they always can do with an extra pair of hands. No one wants to sort of commit to taking you on, because if you're absolutely useless, then it's hard to get rid of you. So it's just easier. It's an easier way of getting your foot in the door if you just offer to work for free for the trial period for a couple of days, and if they like you, then you can take you on. That would be the very easiest way. You can go to college. I mean, that's fine. If there's lads in college, great, but you're going to get a lot more experience and break into the trade easier if you just start doing the job. So I'll definitely recommend getting on site. Domestic work. This is the avenue I'd recommend, because you can get in doing domestic work, but it's a lot of a longer process to be taught to plaster domestically, because you're actually in a customer's house that is what, the actual end user of that room is there, and they're paying top money to have it plastered because they want it better than what it originally is. So the thought of sort of someone practicing in their house learning to plaster doesn't go down too well. Whereas on site, if you've got the building sites, you've got all the shower walls to plaster, you've got in the cupboards to plaster, airing cupboards under the stairs, all these little places where plasterers put their apprentices to start practicing and learn to plaster. So building sites are really the best place to break into the trade. And as well, I think every young lad that's getting into plastering should do site work first, just so they know what real work is, because I don't do site work anymore. I've got no inclination to ever go back on a building site. But I now know what I'm capable of doing. When I need to turn it up a little bit, I know I can put the meterage on if I have to, or, I probably couldn't in this condition. But do you know what I'm trying to say? Whereas you see lads that have only done domestic work, like young Kieran that works with me, God love him. He's a fantastic little lad. He's great. But if we skim a room out, and it comes to like R4, he's like, oh, I'm tired now. I'm like, you plastered one wall and mixed up like 4 bags of fish. I mean, Sam, who used to work with me when we were, back working for Redrome, he'd be mixing up, there was a gang of lads, he'd be like mixing up, I don't know, 8 buckets of plaster, every gauge, 3 gauges a day, and running up and downstairs, carrying plasterboards in, getting next door loaded out whilst we were finishing this house up. I mean, it's just non-stop hard graft. I mean, not that that's a great thing, but it's sort of, you learn systems, how to become very fast and very efficient when you do site work. So I would definitely recommend, if you want to get into plastering, do site work first. Go and get in with a gang on site, and don't just go for any gang. You want to work with some decent lads. You don't want to be working with dogs that are just rough. You want to go and scout out some decent blokes on the site. It doesn't take a lot to find some site plasterers. Just ask around. You could even go directly to the company that they work for. They all subby for someone, and ask the boss, is there any gangs on your site that could do with an extra pair of hands? I want to jump in, and I don't know. There's loads of ways of going about it, but definitely go for site work, mate. Sean Oxborough. Plastering in winter is a nightmare. Chasing shadows as a newbie under artificial light is horrible early on. Yeah, when you've got the halogen light shining down your wall, showing up everything. Let's have a look. Skater Girl. Kirk, I have walls that need plastering at the back of a 1900s house, i.e. back, bathroom and kitchen. Do you recommend sand and cement as a first coat? PS, what is a 9-inch wall? Okay, so a 9-inch wall, they're not all 9-inch either, so bit of a stupid term for me to use that. But basically, I think it was about the 90s. Cavity walls were slowly introduced in the UK. I think there's varying thoughts on this, because I've read a few different books and a few different articles, and cavities started to be sort of like more commonly used through the time. So people say, oh, you didn't have cavity walls until the mid-50s, but there was some builders doing, putting cavities in before then. Anyway, A 9-inch wall, when I say a 9-inch wall, what I basically mean is a house built with no cavity. It's just 2 bricks side by side, so it's like 9 inches thick. And the issue that you have when you have a solid wall, the sole purpose of a cavity is to stop penetrating damp, is to stop the rainwater that hits the outside skin of brick passing through and making a damp patch on the inside skin of brick. That's the sole purpose of a cavity. And now you have cavity wall insulation, but the cavity isn't a space just to be filled up with insulation. You can do it now, but the original purpose of it was to stop moisture transferring through. Now, that wasn't so much of an issue years ago when we used lime plaster, because lime plaster is breathable. So any moisture that came through the brickwork would just be dispersed. It wouldn't be a big issue. There was no issues with damp when everything was done with lime plaster. But now, because we started using sand and cement and these thistle gypsum plasters, damp and penetrating damp especially is an issue. So if you get a wall with no cavity, just a solid, wall, brick to brick, and you put gypsum plaster on the inside, say you use bonding or browning or hardwall or whatever on the internal skin of brick, and it rains and that's getting driving rain on that wall, you will start to get damp patches on the inside of the wall because the moisture just comes straight through the wall, and it's almost like gypsum plaster sucks it through even worse. So, and you'll notice dark patches on the wall. If you ever go into an old house and all the walls are like lime plastered and there's bits fell off and they've been filled back in with bonding and skimmed, when you look at the walls, you'll see like dark patches on the wall, like just darker sections when you take the wallpaper off. Almost guaranteed if you dig into them, they'll be filled with bonding. And that's why they're just bringing moisture from outside. So, ideally, you'd want to put lime plaster back into them houses because that's how they would, that was the original plastering system. That's how they were designed to be, sort of lined with lime. If you're not going to use lime, then the next best thing is going to be sand and cement with waterproofer in it, something to stop that moisture coming through. There's loads more systems now. You can use gyp line, and it's like a metal frame built off the wall. We did all that in the flour mills in Birkenhead. There's then you can put membrane on the wall and all sorts of stuff. But if you wanted to just keep it simple, and you didn't want to go down the route of using lime because it's too expensive and you don't have to all the rest of it, then just give it a good coat of sand and cement with waterproofing in first, before you sort of put any other plastering system on top, if that makes sense. There's probably more ways, and there's probably going to be people in the comment section that give you different advice as well, but that's just one way of sort of sorting it out. Samuel Watkins, I was struggling with the flexi trowel, took your advice and just stopped using it with immediate better results. Yeah, spot on, mate. I had the same sort of issue with the spatulas as well. I think, to be honest with you, if flexi trowels for reskimming, I would say just forget it, personally. But I know, like my mate is on site still, does site work, and he uses flexi trowels. He uses his flexi trowel towards the end of the gauge, the last sort of trowel and the polish, he'll use a flexi trowel. And he's adamant he has absolutely no problems. And I genuinely believe him, because this lad I'm talking about, Lee, fantastic plasterer, he really is. When I was young, he's a bit older than me. He's one of my best mates, a bit older than me. Taught me loads of stuff about plastering on site when I first started on site years and years and years ago. Because my dad was old school, all of his sort of knowledge was all float and set. So when we go onto the building sites and it was all dry lined, Lee, who was like 10 years older than me, had been on site for 10 years, sort of showed me the ropes and a few little tips and tricks when it comes to dry lining. Now, he knows his stuff and he uses a flexi trowel on site and he's adamant it's absolutely spot on. But here's the thing, he's going over backgrounds, an even suction, he's going over plasterboard, and the walls are already dead flat. So he's not trying to straighten nothing out, and he's not trying to deal with different suctions. So, not completely writing flexi trowels off. He likes using them, and he has no issues. I personally wouldn't bother. So, Because I know there's probably lads that are on site that use them and don't have any issues, and they're probably thinking, Kirk's full of shit, because we actually use them with no issues. So, in certain circumstances, they can probably be okay if you know exactly what you're doing with them. But I personally don't like using them. Enough about flexi trials, man. People on here are probably sick of listening to me talk about flexi trials and SPR. 666 woos. All right, Kirk, use your rolling set technique today. Work the treat. Cheers, Andy. Spot on. It's yeah. People don't believe you when you sort of say you can put 20 bags of plaster on. People, no, you can't. But you can. But they think you mean all at once. Whereas with the rolling set, it just you at any one time you might have, I don't know, 8 bags of plaster on at any one time, but it's very manageable. People think that you're trying to say you're the hero when you can get tons and tons on. It's not a case of that. It's just timings, and you getting the timings to work right for you. So I'm glad it worked for you, mate. The rolling set, it's not, again, I wanted to sort of put it out there so you can see how to do it, how I've done it. But I don't personally do that every day, because you don't get a break. I like to sit down between trials, have a little look on my phone, check my emails, phone the missus, have something to eat. So I don't really like doing a rolling set, because you don't get a second to stop. It's just non-stop. But it's good if you need to get the meterage on, or if you have a massive ceiling. It's you can do any size ceiling by yourself doing it. So it's good for things like that. Frankie 1994. Where's the bevies at, lad? Oh, do you know what? I've been trying to cut down a little bit on the bevies, mate. So I've had a cup of coffee. Look at that as well. Would you like a cup? This is the great thing about having daughters. You get all these flipping big pink mugs full of hearts and everything. Punt, there's a plasterer pub. Drop in there and have a chat. Yeah. Let's have a look. There is actually Eric, my mate, plasterer.org. He's got Ask a Plasterer, and he does a YouTube thing where it's like down at the local boozer, the Plasterer's Arms. Sky Pro Gamer, have you ever thought about doing training courses, not just online? No. Yeah, I have thought about it. I don't think I'll ever do it, mate, to be honest with you. I sort of did a thing where you could come and work with me for the day, or I'd come and work with someone else for the day. I know it'd be sort of nicer to have a school sort of situation. But my thinking on it is, to be honest with you, mate, if I was going to do something like that, I mean, you'd have to sort of work with me for at least a year, I wouldn't really want someone to come in and do a week with me, and then I don't know. If I'm going to do something, I like to give the very best of myself, I don't want to sort of like anyone to sort of feel like they've, what can I call it, like false hope, come and do a week in my training school and you be a plasterer, and then they go out and have an issue. The thing with plastering here's my thoughts on it. I could stand behind anybody and get them to plaster, a 2 plasterboard square wall and get a decent result. I could literally stand behind anybody and go, okay, do this bit now. And then, you could literally talk someone through the whole process stood behind them. But here's the thing. Plastering takes so long to learn, not because of the technique, because you can sort of teach that very quickly to someone. It's learning how to overcome all the different problems you come up against, and that's what takes time. So if I had a training college, I would literally have to have 60 different backgrounds that you could go over, lime wash, paint, because it's all that sort of stuff that takes the time to learn. you've got to sort of go through all these different scenarios and what to do when this happens and what to do when that happens. I mean, if it'd be better if sort of like if you did these training courses, the guys that run these 1 week courses, if they just literally made effing a nightmare for you, you know, you've got bubbling on your ceiling, you've got ripples to deal with, you've got, you know, flipping plasterboards flapping around, you've got paint peeling off when you're trying to skim it. You know, that'd be a much better thing to teach people, because when they sort of set them free into the wild, this is the sort of stuff they come up against. So what I try and do is I try and cover as much of this sort of crap that you have to deal with in my videos, because just sort of showing someone how to skim a wall is quite simple. But anyway, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there. But no, I would do a training thing, but I think it'd have to be a long-term sort of thing for it to be of any real benefit, you know, when it comes to teaching the skills of plastering. Oh yeah, Ronnie Barker, Kirk has a private group if you're interested. Yeah, so the private group, I did sort of promise I wouldn't go on about this because I didn't want people to feel like I was spamming the life out of them. I've got a private group, but that is not so much teaching plastering skills. The idea of the group is, if you want to learn the plastering skills or things, you know, how to get over certain obstacles and different bits and bobs like that, you know, my plastering YouTube channel covers all that side of the actual doing the job, you know, the hands-on tools doing the plastering itself. My private group, which you're quite welcome to join, that is solely for how to generate work, how to get work in, how to price jobs, how to put your best foot forward in front of customers, how to generate leads, you know, salesmanship, systemize and everything. It's all sort of the stuff that you don't. I always feel like lads get taught to plaster on site, and then they go off and do their own thing, and they go off to the public, and it's how to get work, how to put yourself across. You know, they get taught all the skill, but none of the marketing side of it, and none of the pricing side of it. You know, so I sort of say, like in the group, you know, if you want to know how to fill your diary, know exactly how to bring work in, know exactly how to price a job up, make sure you're getting the sort of best rate of pay, sort of guarantee that you're going to stand out head and shoulders above any other guys, and you know, even if you're the most expensive, you're still going to sort of get the job, just because of the value you convey to a customer, all those sort of things. That's what the private group is about, sort of not the actual plastering, but the actual getting work and pricing and that sort of stuff. Okay. But I did promise I wouldn't keep going on about that, because people feel like I'm just spamming me subscribers. Where do I join the private group? Okay, mate, if you want to join the private group, this is the last bit I'm going to tell you about it, because people are sick of it. Go to my channel description, you know, the bit where it tells you about me, and there's a link there. It just says join my private group. You just click in there, mate, and that's where you can join that. Okay, so when you go on the YouTube top page, it'll say about at the very end, you know, and you can read the channel description. That's where there's a link at the bottom. You can join it there, mate. Simon D, my missus is sagging. You bad man. Who was it? Someone on here said, talking about Simon saying his missus is sagging. We were talking about backgrounds and high suction backgrounds. Someone said that his missus had a high suction background. Flipping some of the banter. George Sim, anyone ever used Cementone Plasterers Stabilising Primer, and is it any good? I've used it, mate. Yeah, I would just sort of, I would lump them all in with the same sort of stuff, you know, Cementone Plasterers Stabilising Primer. I never actually used it to stabilise a chalky background, so I don't know if that's what it was for. Specifically, I just used it for priming some walls, and it was much the same as blue grit. I think the aggregate was a little bit finer. Thistle Bondit is another one. Canal Becto Contact. There's a few different basically primers with grit in them. In my opinion, Thistle's own one, I would say, is the best out of all of them. But I only really use them if I've got to go over, like, you know, smooth concrete, or if I'm trying to dab to the bottom of a steel beam or something. Neil Trodden, your tip on one of your earlier beginner videos about doing more wet trowels if you need it was spot on. Did my first full wall today, whole bag, used the speed skim you sent me, lifesaver. Yes. Should we do another one of those? Should we do another one of those sort of giveaways, guys? I mean, if you like them, if you want to do it again, I'll get another trowel. What we did last time, for anyone that doesn't know, I got a trowel, a stainless steel Marshalltown trowel. I bought that. I wore it in for a month. Give it as much use as I could for a month, and then basically said, if you want to buy a little ticket to be able to win it, it's £4, and I'll send it out to you. Anyway, we got loads and loads of people buying it, and it well covered the cost of the trowel. So what I did then was I bought 2 speed skims as well, like 12 with 900 speed skims, and a load of extra time as well, sachets of extra time. Got a box of that, and then we just give them away as well. So Neil got one of the speed skims spot on it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And that, whilst we're talking about that as well, for any beginners out there, I was actually talking about this just before with my mate Lee. When it comes to troweling up, what Neil's on about, extra trowels. So the method I use is first coat, second coat, flatten it in, first wet trowel, second wet trowel, and a polish. Now here's the thing. That is not set in stone. That is like, I would say that is the minimum required of me, time served plasterer, to do a lovely job. That is the minimum amount of work I can do to get a lovely job. If, for instance, you are just learning, okay, there's nothing wrong with doing extra steps. You know, don't mess around with the stuff when it's too wet. But, you know, if you give it a first coat and the stuff's really messy, well, flatten in between. You know, give it a flattening, then give it a second coat, then flatten in, and then give it your first wet trowel. Now, it might not be good enough then, so there's nothing wrong with giving it another wet trowel, you know, another wet. Do what it needs to get it spot on. You don't have to just do a flatten, 2 wet trowels and a polish, and whatever the end product is, that's what it is. You know, loads of times on site, you should see lads starting out, and you're like, mate, your angles need going over there. Well, I've just give it the second trowel. Like, well, they're not done. Do more. Go over it again. It's not good enough yet. So I would say what the system I use, that is the bare minimum of what you need to do. So if you need to give it more trials to get it right, there's nothing wrong. You won't hurt it by going over it another 3 or 4 times. Get the walls absolutely perfect, and eventually you'll be able to sort of narrow it down. I mean, there's fellas on building sites that get away with 1 coat, flatten in, a trowel and a polish. You couldn't do that on private work because it just wouldn't be good enough, because you're trying to get over all sorts of crap. But, you know, me personally, everything gets 2 coats, gets hit 3 times, and then gets polished. Everything doesn't matter. Same standard of work on every single thing I do. If it needs more, I'll give it more. Sometimes if I'm going over a thick Artex ceiling, it might even get another trowel as well. So even I do extra things if it needs it. Danny Arbuckle jokes, I'd rather use SBR or PVA myself. It's cheaper and dries quicker. Yeah, SBR dries rapid. That's why I like it. SBR for me seals better than PVA. You don't have to wait. Look, some of the primers you have to give them 24 hours to go off and stuff like that. And even then, blue grit. You ever blue gritted some steels under some big bifold doors and a cold extension, going back the next day to dab it, and the blue grit's still wet? That can cause you a nightmare. So SBR doesn't really matter what you go over. It's dry within half an hour. It's ready to be skimmed within half an hour. You know, I said before about skimming those gloss reveals. We SBR'd them 20 minutes. They were dry. They were ready to go. Let's have a look. Pundot, nice, cheers, mate. Is it for plasterers? Because I was just thinking of getting into it. I'm 17. Yes, mate, to plasterers. So, Simon D. Plastering is like making love to a beautiful woman. You have to know when to touch and where. Yeah. I wondered where you're going to go with that. Plastering is like making love to a beautiful woman. You have to know when to touch and where. I thought you were going to go down the route of, filling cracks and holes, but I'm glad you sort of steered that direction, Pundot. Simon D, sorry. The Travelling Mason. Have you ever put toilet paper in bonding plaster? No. 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 Have you? Zach Hurst. My mate, who's a plasterer, says plastering is the hardest trade. Can meet plasterers who can do other trades, but not many joiners or brickies who are actually good at plastering. True. I would say, mate, I mean, I know there's other fellas work hard. I'm not going to... Any sort of fella that's a manual worker works hard, but plastering, it's got to be the hardest game. I mean, I tell you what I would say could potentially be heavier work when you see ground workers lumping round flagstones and curbstones, yeah? But the thing with that is, when you're lumping round a flagstone or a curbstone, right, and you've had enough, you can put it down, can't you? You can just go and have a coffee or something, right? When you're plastering, let's just say you've loaded a house out in the morning full of 8x4 sound blocks, right? They're basically like flagstones, so you're doing that side of things as well. And then you've got to get a mix on, and it doesn't matter how much stuff you've got on the wall, you could get a massive hit on, right? You ain't stopping. It doesn't matter what happens. I fell off a trestle before and I was snapped metatarsals in my foot because I stepped on the little stabilising bar. Yeah. What do you do? Do you lose the ceiling or do you just keep going? So it's definitely the hardest game because you can't stop. There's no off button. You can't just say, I'll deal with that later. I'll come back to that. So in that situation, I mean, when it's hot, the plaster sets faster. So when the more extreme the conditions are for you to work in, to give you a double whammy, the plaster goes off quicker, so you have to work even harder and faster. South Oxfordshire plastering. Evening, mate. Just jumped on. We'll watch from the start later. George says hi. How's it going, George? So, this South Oxfordshire plastering is a gentleman by the name of Gordon, if I remember correctly, and he's got George working with him, who's a top lad, and we did a little video message for him. So hopefully George is watching as well. We'll see. I may get a little update later on WhatsApp. I'm sorry, just reading through here because see if there are any more questions in here. Is Luke W. Is Kieran doing any plastering now? Yeah, Kieran is plastering. Kieran chucks a bit on, to be fair. This is the thing. Kieran's learning from me in the domestic situation. Now, it was literally today that I was talking to my mate Lee about swapping apprentices for a week or two. And he's got a lad called George, not this George that I'm talking about here, but another lad called George. And I've got Kieran, obviously. And I sort of said to Lee, I need Kieran to go on site for a little bit just to suffer a little bit, so he knows what work is. I want him to go on site. And George, who's with them, they're not giving him as much attention because they're always under pressure to get meterage. So I sort of said, well, George can come with me for a week or two and, come to Uncle Kirk's finishing school and we'll just spend time going over the finer details of, different situations and we'll swap. But we'll see how that pans out. But no, Kieran is plastering. But as I said, there's only certain situations where I can sort of let him loose and set him free, If someone's paying me, to get the living room absolutely mint. It's hard to sort of like let an apprentice loose. I mean, because as I said, you know, someone's paying top dollar. They don't want someone practicing, do they? Making a mess and stuff. So he does. He goes over my work, I go over his work, and we mix it in like that, you know. That's why I sort of recommend lads learn on site, to be honest with you. Hi, Kirk. You ever tried Venetian plaster? Yes, mate. Yeah, bought all the kit. I've got all the polishing trowels and everything out there, and the waxes and all the different stuff. I did a little bit in my house years ago when it all seemed to start kicking off, and you know, when it was like a sort of coming to life. I got all the gear. Did a bit in my house. Really happy with the results. You know, looked mint. It was just bright and shiny. So I wanted to get into doing it. So I practiced, and I was really, you know, I did a few little sample boards, and I did a bit in my place. We thought it was great, but ultimately, after we sort of like, you know, got over the initial, me and the missus, like after we sort of got over the, oh, isn't that fancy? Then we were sort of looking at it thinking, it's a bit tacky, that, isn't it? You know. So we, yeah, we got rid of it, and then ultimately, I wanted to get good at it so I could do it for people. I advertised it a little bit. I literally got maybe one bit of interest in it, or two people were interested in it, and that was about it. So I think really the calling for it in my area where I live is not that high. It may potentially be, there may be potentially more work out there for polished plaster and Venetian plaster and that sort of stuff now, but I'm talking like, you know, 15 years ago. Even now, I never literally get asked for it, so I haven't really bothered really breaking into it, because there just seems to be no call for it for where I am. Maybe if you're in London, you know, might be worth getting into. But I've tried it, mate. I wouldn't say I'm excellent at it, you know, because I've only done a few little bits of it. It's not that hard to get into, to be fair. It's not the most difficult thing in the world to do. Let's have a look. Now, Pundot is saying, how do you get your card? I'm not sure if he's talking to me or Danny. I don't know who he's talking to. If you're on about your CSCS card, oh, here we go. Yeah, because he's saying here, Pundot, cheers for the advice on my question. I'll look into site work, mate. Got college. I've applied for plastering as well. Yes, mate. Great stuff. Pundot, listen, mate. Whilst I've got you, if you want, mate, if you're a young lad starting out in the plastering game and you want to get into the plastering game and you need any advice, I know I've just sort of had a little thing on here, right? Go to me about section in my YouTube, yeah? My email address is in there, mate. Send me your phone number, right? And we'll have a little chat at some point. All right, mate. Send me your phone number when you're ready. And if you ever want to contact me, mate, I'll help you out as much as I possibly can. All right. Any sort of young lads that are getting into plastering, mate, then and you're trying, you know, you're watching plastering videos on YouTube, you're asking questions and stuff, mate. I take my hat off to you. There's not many lads out there these days that are keen to get, you know, to break into the trade. So if you're genuinely, you know, after help, then I'll help you, mate. I'll give you as much advice as I possibly can. And, you know, I'm in contact with plasterers up and down the country. If I can pull a string for you, mate, and get you a little start, you know, and you promise to be a good grafter and not embarrass me by, you know, being lazy, playing on your phone and stuff, then I'll do what I can to help you, mate, okay? So, email me. It's in the thing there, mate. Send us your phone number if you want, you know, and I'll do what I can for you to help you out, pal. Skater Girl, thank you very much for the advice, Kirk. You've been a great help. Yeah, spot on. That's why I do these little Q&As. It's good, isn't it? I just get sidetracked. I meant to be answering questions, but instead I just go off on little tangents and start talking about all sorts. Andrew Barraclough, hi Kirk. What method would you use to do a media wall, do all the internal boxing, and then outside? Thanks. Andrew, it was you that asked. So yes, hope I've answered your question, mate. Do all the opposite angles, make it easy for yourself. Doing all the internal boxes is loads of wet angles, and because they're only small, you end up digging in with your trowel. So you're trying to, you're plastering the side and you're digging into the back bit with your trowel. It just makes it a pain. So if you've got the time, work hard angles, mate. Just make your life easier. Big Chris, hi buddy, can't believe I've missed another live. My 2-year-old girl taking over telly again. We'll be watching it later, defo. Hey, nice to have you on now though, Big Chris. Andrew Barraclough, when you put hardwall on a brick wall, do you need to prime it first, or is it okay to just put it on? Cheers for all the advice you give. No, Andrew, so hardwall is designed for high suction backgrounds. You've got British gypsum only make two, well, no, there's here we go. There's back coat plasters and there's finishing plasters. Your finishing plasters, let's just stay with British gypsum, right? Let's not talk about the other brands. British gypsum, you've got board finish and multi-finish. They're the two finishing plasters. There's potentially Carlite finish. I don't know what the deal is. If I don't know who's making that. It's over in Ireland. You don't seem to get it over here in the UK. Then you've got your back coat plasters. There's dry coat, which is your sand and cement bagged up by British gypsum with additives, whatever they put in that. I don't know. I don't use it. I use sand and cement. But then you've got, at the moment, hardwall and bonding. Now, there used to be tough coat and there used to be browning as well, but they don't make them anymore. So now you've only got two back coat plasters, bonding coat and hardwall. Now, the reason there's two is because they're for different situations. A lot of fellas use bonding for everything. They just think it's a back coat plaster, that's what we use. Bonding is specifically designed for low suction backgrounds. For instance, plasterboards and sealed backgrounds. So if you wanted to float a wall with bonding, then yes, you would need to seal it first. You need to stop the suction first for bonding. People say, why would you use bonding on plasterboards? Who knows? If you're wild at dabbing and your boards are all over the place, then you might need to straighten them out. If you've got, 45-degree angles and you want to curve the ceiling in, then you use bonding in them situations. Hardwall is specifically designed for high suction backgrounds. So literally, if you're floating walls, then you use hardwall. Bonding is for plasterboards, and if you, I don't know, maybe you've got an Artex ceiling and the Artex is well adhered and it's really spiky, and you don't want to scrape it, so you could level that out with bonding. You wouldn't use hardwall because you've sealed the ceiling. You could level it out with bonding. Okay, hope that makes sense. But no, if you're using hardwall, you don't need to do any sort of preparation for a high suction background. You can just go straight on it. But you don't put it on plasterboard and don't put it on sealed backgrounds. That's what you need bonding for. Reece Benson, hi pal, nightmare today. Bonded a wall out yesterday and couldn't skim the same day, so SBR it today, waited for it to go off, skimmed, but went off straight away. Any suggestions? Yes, this is the problem with when you sort of leave bonding to go right off and dry out. You want to, as you said, so for anyone that doesn't understand this, bonding is designed to be skimmed, or well, it's not designed, but it's just best to skim it the minute it's set or it's starting to set. Plastic is wet, then it sets, then it dries out. As it's drying out, the moisture's leaving it, so anything you put on it sucks the moisture back in again. So when it comes to skimming over it, you want it to skim it when it's at the set point, not when it's dried out. That's where Reece is on about now. He's had to leave it till the next day, so it's had a chance to dry out a little bit. When you're sealed with SBR, mate, your SBR works great, but the longer you leave it, so SBR will go tacky and like dry first, but the longer you leave it, it like seals, like something happens inside the liquid. Like even though it's dry on the wall, the longer you leave it, the more it seals it. So sort of SBR it, maybe SBR it twice and then leave it. Do that first thing in the morning and leave it till after dinner time before you skim it. The longer you leave the SBR to sort of really go off, the better job it's going to do. Sort of high suction backgrounds, even though you SBR them and you try and skim them 20 minutes later, you'll still get a lot of suction through. All right. Sky Pro Gamer, if you had to invent a tool for plastering, what would it be? Probably someone else to do it. If I had to invent a tool for plastering, what would it be? Do you know what, mate? I wouldn't invent a new tool. What I would like to see is a return of all the old tools. I would sort of like to see the skill come back into the trade a lot more. You know, there's a lot of lads coming up now, and they're learning to skim on site. You know, and that's what I recommend. I know I'm recommend, and I'm going to sound like I'm sort of contradicting myself. They're learning to skim on site, and they're learning, you know, to dry line. But the art of plastering, I feel, is being lost. I would like to see, you know, a rebirth of, you know, lads learning to float and set and you know, to run cornice, and it all depends on what's called for, isn't it? You know, but I would like to see, you know, lads derbying walls off and feather edging walls and knowing how to lay screeds and all that sort of stuff. So I wouldn't like to invent new tools. I'd like to see, you know, the old tools being used again and properly. Boom, boom, boom. Conrad Jones, if you really struggle, a thin third coat isn't a bad idea at times. Yeah, spot on, Conrad. That's what you may have seen me when I lost the living room ceiling. That's what I did. Let it really pick up first. The longer you leave the plaster to sort of set, not, you don't want it to go off, because then you got two layers, then you can delaminate from each other. But if the longer you leave the plaster to pull in, it sort of starts to seal the background a little bit. So a nice wet third coat then usually comes down lovely as well. So do you wait for SBR to completely dry? Like, Fallons, do you wait till SBR is completely dry or tacky? It depends on the background, mate, you know. So SBR, you don't have to go over it when it's tacky. You can let it completely dry. I will plaster over it usually as soon as it starts to go tacky. I can skim, because I want to get, you know, we turned up on a job and I want to get plastering as fast as I can and get the job done. But if the background is a high suction background, then I will leave it to completely dry, and I'll leave it, you know, I'll give it time to really cure, so it kills the suction off. So I hope that's answered your question, mate. Ian Turner, plasterers have to work to the thistle, not the whistle. The old school will understand that. Yeah, that's spot on. That's what I've said that to customers in the past when they sort of clock. You know, you're on a job for a couple of days, and you might get your couple of mixes in, and it's like 2:30, 3 o'clock. Done all your prep work, so you just call it a day and go. And they're sort of looking, thinking, hey, it's only 3 o'clock, why are you going? But they don't understand. If you do another mix now, you know, you'll be there late. So you've done your day's work. You work into the thistle, not the whistle. And you have to say that to them, look, there's nothing else we can do. All the prep's done. We're not having another mix now, because if we mix up now at 3 o'clock, we'll be here till, you know, 6, 7 o'clock before we go home. So we're just calling it a day now. And it's funny, aren't they? Sometimes customers, you know, where are you going? And I'll tell you the other one. Who was it? I remember once I went to look at a job, and I was with my mate, and the customer, you know, she was really keen to find out, you know, she wanted to know what the price was there and then. So we told her, and then she was like, well, how much do the materials cost? So, okay, so we told her what the material cost was. And then okay, so how long will it take you to do the job? Okay, oh, here we go. She wants to know the ins and outs. Fine, you know, so we told her. And ultimately, what she did was she worked it all out in front of us. We were just stood there talking. Like, she worked it all out. What the materials were, what the wage bill was going to be, how long it was going to, you know, chopped all our price down. Now, bear in mind that customers don't always take into account if there's a problem on a job, you know, if something goes over, who pays for that, you know? Is the profit. If you can't run a business at no profit. So all these sort of things have to be factored in, when you're self-employed, you don't get sick pay, you don't get holiday pay, you don't get a pension. So when you sort of put your price together, if you did it for the bare minimum all the time, you'd soon be out of business. But anyways, cutting to what I'm trying to tell you, she worked it all out and then basically worked out what each man was earning a day. So she said, she turned around and she went, "That's more than what my husband earns." Like we were supposed to be cheaper than what her husband works for, which is fine. We weren't pressuring her to go with us. And my mate just turned round and said, "Well, if he had tried harder in school, he could have been a plasterer, couldn't he?" Which, anyway, probably not the best thing to say because we didn't get the job. But anyway, it's funny in how people sort of like work out, well, because you're a plasterer, you're only worth that. But if you're, I don't know, if you work in a factory or an office, then you're worth twice as much. I don't know. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, if you try harder in school, you can be a plasterer. Big Chris, I feel for you. I broke my foot before Christmas, came off a hop-up and snapped 2 bones in my foot. Decided to take my shoes off and duct tape my ankle up and carried on plastering as I was on my second coat. Yeah, do you know when I snapped my metatarsals in my foot, I carried on with the ceiling anyway. And Sam, at the time, my brother-in-law, who was plastering with me, he was, because I was saying to him, "Go over my ceiling, my foot's killing." And he thought I was blagging. He thought I was lying to try and do less work. So he wouldn't do it. He was like, no, I've got too much to do. You will have to do it. So anyway, I carried on plastering. Went home, took my shoe off, took my boot off. Flipping foot just went like that, massive. Went to the hospital. Had a cast on my foot. Now this was like, I don't know how many years ago. I was in like my early 20s. And back then, I had like 2 kids at the time, no savings, nothing. So literally living hand to mouth every week, trying to keep my head above water. I think we were in a recession, the 2008 recession. It was, I don't know. Anyway, there wasn't much work around anyway. So what choice do you have? I went to the doctors and looking at like sick pay and stuff, and I think I was entitled to about £50 a week or something. So I had no choice but to basically go back to work with the cast on. So I was on the job with my foot in a cast, plastering what I could, and then after like 2 days of that, the cast was just basically destroyed. There was nothing left of it, so I cut it off. Went to the hospital to get a new one. They refused to put a new one on because I cut the last one off. So that was the end of that. I just put my boots on, tied them up tight, went to work with a broken foot. The joys of being self-employed. And then you get some people telling you you're not allowed to charge that much because her husband doesn't earn that much. Well, does he have to go to work with broken bones to just survive? Anyway, I sound quite cynical there, though. I'm not cynical. It just makes you it just humours you, doesn't it? When people put a value on get a skills visa. Okay, when it comes to, right, okay, here we go. Skater girl. When it comes to putting on a second coat, how do I know where I've already second coated and when I still need to second coat? Which on YouTube, watching on YouTube, the first and second coats virtually look the same. Thanks. Right, you're right. Your first and second coat do look the same. When you get into a nice little technique of applying your first coat, what you'll find, right, sorry if this sounds boring for everyone else that sort of knows about plastering, so I'm just going to quickly explain this, and I hope this makes sense for you, skater girl. If you're right-handed, when you're applying finishing plaster, you start at the left-hand side of the wall, right? And the reason being, when you hold your trowel, the top of the trowel is called the toe, and the bottom of the trowel is called the heel, like a foot, yeah? Now, what you usually find is when you apply your plaster on the wall, when you're troweling up, the heel, the back of your trowel leaves a line on the wall, okay? The toe usually doesn't unless the wall's got a hollow in it, but usually the heel leaves a line. So that's how you know where to keep going as you're going down the wall. Now, when you come to putting your second coat on, one, you're going to remember where you're up to because you work methodically. You don't just turn to a wall and put plaster wherever you feel like. Top left to top right, bottom left to bottom right is the system that I use. You get some fellas that will start at the bottom, but most time serve plasterers will do it like that, and the heel leaves a line, so it's very easy to see where you're up to because you're just looking for one line on the wall and then you know. But you instinctively know because once you've done it for a while, you just know where the last place that you was, where you're going back to, you know. Hope that makes sense. You sort of like, you know, even if I didn't leave a line, I'd sort of just know because I've only just turned me back to get more gear. I'd know I was just up to there. So, I mean, sometimes you do lose your place. Sometimes I'll jump on a ceiling. I've had a phone call in between, and I'll have missed 4 foot of plaster where, you know, when I'm trialing up because I took a phone call, and I don't realise until I get back around and I think, flipping heck, this isn't it. What's going on here? So, you know, but usually that's how you can tell. Now, interestingly enough, when we're talking about, because you were asking before about putting back coat plasters on, when you're putting your finishing coat plasters on, you work left to right because your heel leaves a line and you try on that line. If you worked right to left, you'd have loads of lines on your wall. Okay, so you work left to right, so you're covering that heel line. It'd be the opposite way if you were left-handed. You'd work, you know, right to left then because you'd be covering the line of the heel with the trowel. This is me holding the trowel, by the way, not just doing this like a flipping crazy lunatic. Now, if you're putting back coat plaster on, you go the opposite direction. So if I'm putting back coat plaster on the wall, I'm right-handed. I will start at the right and work to the left. Now, the reason for this, because I've seen a few fellas on YouTube do it the opposite way around, and I've seen some fellas on, I've seen someone teaching in college, some students, and it was on a Facebook reel, and he was doing it the opposite way around, right? The reason you work from right to left when you're putting a back coat plaster on is because it's going on thick. Now, when the plaster's thick, it tends to fall away from the wall a little bit. You've got to press it in the wall. Now, as you come up with your sweep, if you're working from right to left, every sweep that you do with right hand, you turn the plaster into itself. It's sticking to itself. Okay? If I was to go from left to right, as I'm coming off, it's got nothing to stick to, and it'll curl and drop. Now, it won't all drop, but you will literally lose every trowel's worth you put on. You'll lose about 10 to 20% of the plaster, and you'll end up with a load of gear on the floor. Ideally, you don't want to drop anything, so I can basically float a wall, and you know, you do drop a little bit, but not much, not as much as if you were going the other way. There's potentially other reasons, but that's the only reason I've ever really considered why I work right to left when I'm putting back coat plaster on, just because it ties the plaster into itself. So I hope that answers your question. You got some more info as well. Nicola Johnstone said hi. In case you're wondering who Nicola Johnstone is, unless there's 2 of them, and I'm being stalked by Nicola Johnstones, this one will be my missus. So if anyone wants to say hi to me, missus, you can say hi to Nick. I don't know why she's watching me on YouTube, because she's probably sick of the flipping sound of my voice. But anyway, hi babe, you alright? Do us a favour, Nick, if you are watching, get one of the girls to make us a cup of coffee, will you? I'm flipping running a bit dry here. Sean Harris, glad to see you Q&A again. Plastering my first time at home. Walls are painting. What product would you suggest? Bonding or multi? Walls are painted. No, if your walls are painted, mate, bonding is not a finishing plaster, so you can use board finish or multi. If you're beginning at plastering, I would use multi because it comes back easier. You know, if the stuff's going off on you, you can wet it. You know, you can bring it back to life a little bit easier. Board finish, once it's sort of going, it's setting. You know, multi finish is a little bit more malleable. It's a bit more. You know, you can wet it up a little bit still, even when it's on the wall and it's starting to set. You can flick a bit of water on it, brush it and bring it, you know, back so it's. What's the word I'm looking for? You know what I'm trying to say, don't you? Rabble, so want to. I don't know how to say your name, mate. When you have a mosquito in balls, you discover that violence does not solve anything. Okay, mate. Don't let mosquitoes get down your knickers. Here's a good one for you, Kirk. Oh, Jorix Jim. Here's a good one for you, Kirk. If you had your time over again, would you still be a spread or choose another trade? That's a hell of a question, that, Jim. If I had my time over again, would I still be a plasterer? I genuinely love my job. I'm a workaholic. It's probably not a good thing, but I can't. My missus will sort of back me up on this. If I'm sort of sat around for more than if I have a time off, we go on holiday, I sleep. Like, I can sleep like flipping 16 hours a day when I have a bit of a break and just sort of catch up on sleep. And then after that, once I'm sort of rested, my thumbs are twiddling, I'm looking for things to do. So I love working. I love plastering. If I had my time again, there's probably a better way of me putting this. If I won the lottery tomorrow and I was a multi-millionaire and I didn't need to plaster anymore, I would probably still do it. Not for the money, but I'd still do it because I enjoy it. I'd pick the nicest jobs and go and do them, and I'd probably do loads of free jobs and, you know, try and help people out and teach people or whatever. I enjoy it. What I don't like about plastering is not so much the plastering side of it, the self-employed side of it, where you sort of graft your whole sort of life and there's no perks and benefits. So when it comes to, for instance, my son, would I want to get my son into plastering? I would like him to learn it, but I would like him to go and get a career that has a bit more benefits, you know. Like, for instance, now, if I'm off ill, no pay. Break a bone, no pay. Go on holiday, no pay. Is there a pension scheme? No. You know, it's that side of it's a bit naff. But saying that, we can get out. We can earn mega money. You know, there's no limit on how much you can earn. You're not your own boss. You have about 365 different bosses. I would potentially say, yeah, I would. Mate, you've asked me a flipping horrendous question here. I don't know. I love my job, but there's better ways easier, less stressful ways of making money. Is probably the way I'd answer it. I would still like to plaster, even if I had a different job. There you go. No more awkward questions, guys. Jimmy's building services. I Kirk joined late. Gonna have to watch tomorrow night. Where have you been, Jimmy? You're late on parade again, mate. Kirk, a big question. This is from Spriggs8. Big question. Everton or Liverpool? Been many times, spent hours on the Widow. Lovely place. Everton or Liverpool? Mate, I'm not a footy fan. Nothing against football. I'm not against it. I don't, you know, I'm just like, it's if I said to you, do you fancy coming down the Labour Club to watch these old boys play dominoes? You know, it's about the same for me. I was never really any good from when I was in school as a kid. I was no good at football. My dad wasn't into it, so we never watched it at home. And I was always the last kid to get picked. So I didn't have a passion for football because I'd be stood there. My mum had me dressed in my hush puppy sandals, right, with me shorts on that were originally pants, but she chopped the legs off and put a hem on for shorts. Yeah, I was dressed up like a proper little twerp. I was the little fat kid, you know, that used to get picked on a little bit when I was in primary school, and I was always the last one. You know, there'd be a line of 20 kids, and I'd be the last one to get picked on their team, and everyone. When I ended up on that person's team, they all were like, "Oh, we've got him." Like, I was more of a hindrance than a help. So, I never really got into footy. I suppose if I loved playing it in school, then I probably would have really got into supporting a team. But I sort of like, because I don't know, I just never got into it. I'm assuming it was because of that. So I got into boxing instead, which actually served me quite well, because getting picked on but being quite good at boxing, you know, that sort of resolved that situation for me. So, you know, once you've just whoosh, sparked a few of the bullies out, then that's the end of the problem for you. Everton or Liverpool. When I was younger, I had a girlfriend, and she was a massive Everton fan. So she actually had a season ticket. Her dad was a season ticket holder, and I went to an Everton game. Must admit, the atmosphere and the crowd, you know, when that fella's at the back with the big boom, 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 you know, the big drum and all that, like, and everyone's cheering. I loved it. I did enjoy it. I liked being at the footy games. Wouldn't really matter to me who went and watched. I enjoyed the game, but I don't watch it on telly or nothing. My mate does. I have to sit there talking to him and enjoy it. But let's have a look. Skypo Gamer, where'd you get all your energy from? I'm cream crackered after the day's work, let alone finding time to do all the extra stuff you do. Do you know what? Like I said to you, mate, I'm a workaholic. I just enjoy, I mean, if I'm not in work, I'm like now, I used to focus all my energies on getting more work all the time, but now it's like at the point, I've sort of reached a point in my career where I don't really have to. I used to finish work and then come home and then focus on getting more work. Here we go. Here's my cup of coffee. Oh, thanks, sweetheart.
It's hot.
Okay. Could have got me a bigger cup. It's like a little shatter coffee.
Oh, get you a big one?
I'm only joking with you, sweetheart. You okay?
Yeah. You've
Right.
got the big cup.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Take that one back to you, Mum. So thank you very much. I love you.
Okay.
All right, chicken. See you in a little bit.
See you in a little bit. Your music going out by the way, okay?
Okay, sweetheart. Be good.
Okay.
Kids, nice, aren't they? It's like when you've got kids, it's like having like little slaves, isn't it? You just got to pay them with Cocoa Pops to keep them going. Just feed them and you can get them to do anything you want. Flipping, fetch me this, carry me that, wash the dishes, do the hoovering for your mum. Hey, flipping, listen, I'm not naive. I'm the slave in this situation. Me, I'm like a flipping hamster on a wheel. All I do is work permanently to fetch home money so that these guys can have a nice lifestyle. Where was we up to there? Oh yeah, so that's what I was saying. Yeah, I used to come home and focus all my energies on just like getting more work. Remember, I've told a few in the past, I was trying to expand. I was trying to grow a massive business of loads of plasterers. You know, I used to do all. I'm at a point now where I don't really have to do anything to get more work. Like literally, I try and hide from it. I actually got myself off WhatsApp and a few other different things to try and limit the amount of ways customers could get hold of me, because I was getting too overwhelmed. I'm actually back on WhatsApp now because of the coaching group that I do. Some lads wanted it on WhatsApp rather than Facebook. But anyway, yeah, I don't. So now, me spare time of an evening and stuff, I make videos for you guys now, and as well, I must admit, the little coaching group I spend flipping a lot of time talking on the phone to the lads in that and making videos for them guys in there, and all the rest of the stuff that goes along with that. So minutes out here. What's he saying there? Scott Bamford. There's a difference in the colour I found on the second coat. Yes, there is a difference in colour as well, mate. For Skater Girl that was asking about knowing where you're up to with the first coat and the second coat, as plaster's going off, it seems to go darker. I always find that the fresher gear you put on, it's like a lighter colour, so you can always spot it with that a little bit. Sometimes, not all the time, but you can sometimes spot it with the colour. Eric C, late in, was out for a few pints. I'll have to catch up tomorrow. Love the advice, Kirk. Eric, hope you enjoyed them, mate. I'm on the wagon at the minute, mate. No beer for me, unfortunately. Zazzy, free plastering. Yes, mate. If I was a millionaire, mate, I'd do it for... There we go, reconnected. Loshes, guys. Right, guys. I'm aware of the time. Been on for nearly 2 hours. 6 minutes, 2 hours. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to whiz through these questions now. If anyone's got a question that they want answering now, fire in now. I'm going to try and blitz through these questions as fast as possible. So no more chipper chopper from me. I'm just going to answer questions and then that's it. Then we'll call it a night. All right. Samuel Watkins, are you going to modify the pickup, snorkel, and whatnot? The pickup truck, mate. The pickup truck was literally bought as a bit of an investment and because I love them. And the idea with the pickup truck, mate, was not to modify it, was to get it and put it in the garage and have it completely restored, like literally a full nuts and bolts restoration, everything, you know, done. So when it comes out the workshop, it's like a brand new, straight off the line, Mark III Hilux. The only thing I was interested in when I was buying it was that there was no corrosion. So I checked all the MOT history on every one that I looked at, went back like 10 years on the MOT history of all of them. And that one the one I've got is free from rot, no advisories on it. But that was the only thing I was interested in. It probably needs an engine rebuild, to be honest with you, because it's burning oil. I get a bit of black smoke off it and stuff, and there's a few knocks and bangs. I mean, she'll never stop. She just keeps going, but, you know, it really does need some TLC. But at the minute, whilst my van's in the garage, I've just got to use that for work. I normally, here's a little bit of advice for you lads. Any lads that are out there plastering now, when you're self-employed, take this bit of advice. Put aside a couple of £1,000, £2,000. Just save it up, £100 a week, whatever you need to do. Put a couple of grand aside and just leave it there, because when your van goes in the garage, if it's in for any amount of time, which it does happen, your van always ends up off the road at some point. It's nice to be able to just go out, buy a little dinger, you know, a little flipping owl thing. Doesn't matter what it is. You could even get a little car. Just go and get something so you don't have to let all your customers down and cock your whole diary up, you know. Sort of every time my van gets booked into the garage, I usually just go and buy like a little Citroen Berlingo or something stupid like that, you know, just so I can run around in it. And then as soon as my van's out the garage, just sell it. And if you're good at sales, you can usually sell it for a little bit more than what you bought it for. It's like flipping vehicles as well whilst you're plastering. But if you want to get good at sales, join my group. I'll teach you how to do it. A little plug for my group there as well. Sean Harris, remember to prime the wall. Yeah. Jimmy's Building Services. Hi, Nicolette. It's funny watching Kirk on YouTube. No, is it funny watching Kirk on YouTube, or is he a pain in the ass? You just glad to get him in the shed to give you a break? Jimmy, don't be sowing little seeds, because it doesn't take much for my missus to get an idea. Locking me in the shed. Yeah. Mike R1, cheers, Kirk. Loving the lives, mate. Great advice. Spot on, mate. Glad you enjoy it. Oh, guys, I think that's it. I think we're through all the questions and the comments. So, 1 minute 58. Nearly 2 hours of me. You guys sick of me yet? Flipping heck. Right, I think that'll do us, guys. I think we will call it a night. Go back in and see the family. It's been emotional. Whoa, Joe! No, I'll tell you what I am going to do before that. I forgot to mention. Guys, before I go, sorry, I just seen a few more comments come through them. Before you sign off and we say bon voyage and adios, my last little thing before I go in the house, I'm going to get to work on my newsletter. So it takes me a little while to type these newsletters out because I have to check them and edit them and what have you. Now, I'm not a whiz kid with emails. This is all new to me. I'm learning as I go along. I'm trying to get better and better at different things. But if you don't know, I've got a newsletter. You can sign up for that. In the description of this video now, on this live, there's a little link for you to sign up for my newsletter. Now, it says in the link, when you click on it, you know, the only way I can sort of get your email address is through this little app. and it says pay, but the amount's 0. So don't worry about pressing that. It won't take any money off you. It's completely free, but it's just that the app gets the email addresses for me. So if you want to subscribe to my newsletter, and I'll write you a little letter once a week, it's to everyone. You won't get a personal letter, or I'm not writing you little love letters, but you can do that, and I'll send you a newsletter once a week with some little tips, bits of info and stuff like that on there. Now, as I said, a few people messaged me, said I signed up for it and I haven't had nothing. As I said to you, I'm not the best. I'm learning how to do the email side of things. So don't panic. I've got your email address. Sometimes I don't know exactly what I'm doing and I'm trying to figure it out. So you will get something eventually. And once it starts, they should just keep coming through to you. All right. So if you fancy getting a newsletter off me, then you can sign up, subscribe for it in the description of this channel. Right. Just blitz these comments and then that'll do us, gentlemen. And Skater Girl, if you're still watching. Sorry, I keep forgetting. I always say lads and gentlemen and guys, but got to take into account the wonderful plastering ladies and my missus as well, sweetheart. I hope I'm on the big screen in the living room, love. Put it on for the baby. He loves listening to me talk, doesn't he? All been great to watch. Take care. 2-inch or 3-inch scrim. Ooh. 2-inch or 3-inch scrim. Tell you something interesting. Can't let the cat out of the bag yet, but a very good friend of mine is working on getting some scrim out there. It's 3-inch stuff, and I'm really trying to push him on the colour of the scrim, just because it makes it more interesting if it's a different colour. I'm one of these, man. I like it. It's exciting if you get a new colour scrim, isn't it? So I would say 3-inch scrim, because a lot of the scrimming I do is if I'm scrimming over cracks on walls and stuff, not so much just tape. I'm not so much just putting the joints on boards where 2 inches fine. I'm usually, if there's like crazed cracks on walls, trying to cover them. So I find 3-inch scrim better for that. And that's what my mate is in the middle of developing. But there'll be more news on that once he's done it. In fact, if you sign up for my newsletter, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything because I haven't been told this by any authority. But I would imagine he's going to promote this stuff and do like a little launch, maybe some giveaways. If you're on my newsletter, he's my mate. I might be able to plug it. I might be able to get you some free stuff. I don't know. We'll just see. Danny Arbuckle, you're a machine, Kirk. Top man. All the best. Legend, Danny. You're a gentleman yourself, mate. Enjoy your company. Blogs, we need to do some more skim vlogs, big fella. Yes. Okay, mate. I will do. Jimmy's Building says, if you sign up to the newsletter, check your spam and email. Yes, do that as well. I might have been put in the spam box only because I set up a new email account to send all the emails out. And I sent like an email out to about 100 people. And I think because I hadn't sent a single email from that account in the past, that it flags up with Google that I'm like spamming. So they put me straight in the spam box. So then I had to do another email address to send them out from, and I'm sort of like trying to slowly build it up. And that's why some people haven't got emails yet that have signed up, because if I send too many emails all at once from a brand new email address, it's like it shows up with Google's servers and I get put in people's spam boxes, because your email address actually filters what comes through to you, puts stuff in the spam folder, the junk folder and all that. It does that for you without you sort of having to decide on most email addresses. I'm learning. And if I send loads from mine, then your one goes, oh, nonsense, bin it. He's sent this to 200 people, just bin it. So I've got to sort of figure out that. And I think the best way to stop that happening to me is if people put my stuff in spam, that makes it happen to more of them. And if it helps my thing if people reply to me. If I send you the newsletter out and you reply something, that helps the email server or whatever. I don't know what the word is, but that helps that think, oh, this is it, important stuff that people want because they're replying to it. Does that make sense? Magu who? My man, I use the 3-inch. Just I think I saw you using 4-inch before. Yeah. Flipping, I'll be honest with you, mate. I'll use pretty much anything I can get my hands on. I buy all my materials in bulk usually. All my beads, my SBR, my scrim, screws. I'll literally buy it all. Here's the thing: if you go to the builders merchants for all your little sundries and your bits and bobs, you don't notice it, but over the year you pay through the nose for it. You know, when you buy in bulk, the price you can get from these wholesalers, you can like beads and stuff. I mean, how B&Q, when I was talking about B&Q before, skim stop beads, metal skim stop beads and B&Q, £6. What? £6 for the skim bead? A skim stop bead? It's half the size of a skim bead. It's only got one wing on it. £6. My beads, I think I pay about 55p a bead or something. But I buy boxes and boxes at a time. Like I'll literally put an order in with one of these wholesalers and I'll say, I'll go up to £1,000, give me £1,000's worth of materials. Because I built this workshop to put all my plastering stuff in. So I usually get pallets of plaster delivered. I haven't at the minute because the missus got all the baby stuff down there and all the bedroom stuff when we did the house. So, but usually I like to have all my beads, scrim, SPR, everything in the workshop. So in the morning, there's no visit to the builder's yard. I just go in here, grab what I need, in the back of my big van that's already set out, and away we go. But at the minute, I'm in a pickup truck, and I've got no space in here because it's full of flipping crap that if she's watching this, I'll be in trouble. So I'll say no more. Why the door will be getting locked and I'll be sleeping here? Right, gentlemen. Oh, it's been emotional. God bless you. Good night. And there's the little off button. Oh, it does this all the time. You know, when you answer the phone and you put it to your face, the phone goes off, doesn't it? So you can't press buttons with your cheek. It does this when I'm on this YouTube live. I can't press the off button because the screen is your comments and I can see myself. So I can't press the cancel button. Join my coaching group. Go to my channel description. Join the coaching group. You'll love it. You'll love it. If you don't make more money than what it costs you within the first week, you can have your money back and leave. Right. Good night. God bless. 10:15. Oh, come on. Look, there's 45 people sitting here enjoying watching me struggle with flipping technology. Bastards, yeah. Right. There we go. There we go. See you guys. See you next Sunday for another live. Oh, do you stop streaming yet? Adios.